March 28, 2025. Myanmar shakes violently as a 7.7 earthquake tears the ground apart. Bridges break like toys. Skyscrapers in Bangkok tremble, spilling water onto crowded streets. But this is just the newest chapter in Earth's long, dangerous story. Back in 1556, the ground in China opened suddenly, burying 830,000 people alive. In 1811, the mighty Mississippi River did something impossible. It flowed backward. In 1700, Japan was hit by huge waves, yet nobody there felt any shaking. These aren't random events, they're warnings. The ground under your feet is alive. It moves, it cracks, and it can destroy. Tonight, we'll see Earth's 18 deadliest secrets. Moments when cities disappeared, mountains fell apart, and rivers became graveyards. Are you ready to discover just how fragile our lives truly are? Let's go. 18th. The 2025 Mandalay megaquake. March 28, 2025, began quietly in Mandalay, Myanmar. But at 11:43 a.m., everything changed. The ground suddenly roared as a massive 7.7 magnitude earthquake hit just 17 kilometers from the city, instantly bringing down buildings and bridges. Even the historic Ava Bridge, built by the British in 1934, crumbled into metal rubble dot. Far away, 500 kilometers in Bangkok, Thailand, tall buildings shook violently. Pools on rooftops overflowed, sending waterfalls onto crowded streets and causing widespread panic. In Bangkok's busy downtown area, a 30-story building under construction suddenly fell, trapping 90 workers beneath. Rescue teams quickly found 8 bodies, but fires soon broke out in the wreckage, making the search for survivors difficult. Myanmar's government, usually quiet, surprised the world by openly asking for help. Rescue teams tried to reach Mandalay, but earthquake damage and landslides blocked roads. In Tangshan, a 200-year-old mosque collapsed during Friday prayers, burying many worshippers. 2 days later, a strong 6.4 aftershock destroyed even more weakened buildings. Historians noticed this disaster closely matched Myanmar's earthquake in Bago in 1930, a tragedy mostly lost in history's pages. 17. The 2011 Japan earthquake. On March 11, 2011, a disaster struck Japan that felt like a nightmare coming true. The earth shook with a 9-magnitude quake, the strongest Japan had ever recorded. It lasted for 6 long minutes. Then the sea rushed back, creating giant waves as high as buildings. Towns, like Sendai and Manamisoma, disappeared instantly. Over 18,000 people were lost, many swept out to sea. But things quickly became worse. At Fukushima's nuclear power plant, backup power failed, causing reactors to melt down and leak radiation. Entire towns became unsafe overnight, forcing thousands to leave everything behind. Today, towns near Fukushima stand empty. TV reports often show wildlife wandering streets where humans once lived. Each year, survivors release paper lanterns onto the ocean to remember lost loved ones. A quiet reminder of a similar disaster in 1896. When another tsunami killed thousands but left fewer signs. 16. The 2004 Boxing Day disaster. On December 26, 2004, deep under the Indian Ocean, something terrible happened. A giant crack, 1,200 kilometers long, opened beneath the sea. At first, no one noticed, but soon, water pulled away from beaches, leaving fish stranded on dry land. Tourists on Thailand's beaches took videos, unaware of the danger approaching. Moments later, huge waves returned, destroying hotels and homes. Indonesia was hit hard. In Banda Aceh, a massive ship weighing 2,600 tons was thrown 3 kilometers inland. It's still there, rusting quiet. In Sri Lanka, a passenger train carrying 1,500 people was crushed by waves. Only a few survived. The disaster killed 230,000 people across 14 countries. All reminders of the day the ocean rose without warning, echoing the deadly waves created by the 1883 eruption of Krakatoa. 15. The 1960 Chile earthquake. On May 22, 1960, people in Valdivia, Chile, were living a normal day, when suddenly the ground began to shake harder than it ever had. The earthquake measured 9.5, making it the strongest ever recorded. For 10 long minutes, everything shook. Towns vanished as the earth cracked open. The sea first pulled back, revealing the ocean floor, then surged forward in a wave 25 meters high. Coastal villages disappeared, swept away by powerful water. After the shaking stopped, volcanoes nearby erupted, turning skies dark with ash. Landslides blocked rivers, forming dangerous lakes that soon flooded the towns below. People talked about cows stuck on rooftops and bells ringing by themselves. Scientists found the quake was so powerful it even moved Earth's axis, making the days slightly shorter. The event reminded people of an earlier quake in Chile in 1835, which was so shocking that Charles Darwin wrote it felt like the Earth itself was alive. 14. The 1906 San Francisco earthquake. Early in the morning of April 18, 1906, people in San Francisco woke to a terrifying shake. A 7.9 magnitude earthquake tore through the city along the San Andreas Fault. Buildings made of brick instantly collapsed, trapping families inside. But that was only the beginning. Broken gas pipes started fires everywhere, and broken water lines meant no water to fight the flames. Soon, the entire city was burning. The fires raged for 3 days, destroying homes, shops, and famous landmarks. Desperate firefighters even blew up buildings to try to stop the fire, but nothing worked. Over 3,000 people died, although the real number might be even higher. Authorities hid the true count, worried about causing panic. Photos from the Library of Congress showed a city turned to ash. The author Jack London, who witnessed the destruction, described it as a city filled with ghosts walking through smoke. San Francisco eventually rebuilt, but the quake became a painful memory of the day fire and earth attacked together. 13. The 1976 Tangshan earthquake. At 3:42 a.m. on July 28, 1976, the city of Tangshan, China, was fast asleep when suddenly a massive earthquake shook everyone awake. Measuring 7.8, it struck without any warning. In seconds, almost every building in the city crumbled. Homes turned to dust, burying families in their sleep. Thousands were trapped under heavy concrete slabs, unable to call for help. Officially, 255,000 people died, but later reports showed the true number was probably over 600,000. China kept the disaster secret for many years, not allowing journalists to visit or report what really happened. Only later did stories emerge of parents digging with bare hands to find their children and hospitals filled with wounded people. Some remember dogs acting strangely before the quake and strange dark rain falling afterward. Tangshan had vanished overnight. The quake was similar to one in Shaanxi in 1556. Yet the Tangshan tragedy stayed hidden until recently. A city lost quietly in the dark. 12. The 1556 Shaanxi earthquake. On January 23, 1556, in China's Shaanxi province, people woke up as the ground suddenly began shaking. The earthquake lasted only a few moments but caused unimaginable destruction. Many people lived in caves carved into cliffs called yadongs. These caves had protected families for hundreds of years, but on this day they collapsed, burying thousands alive. Entire villages vanished. Historical records from the Ming Dynasty described whole towns being flattened, leaving no buildings standing. Rivers overflowed and flooded farms, adding to the tragedy. Over 830,000 people died, making it the deadliest earthquake ever recorded. Survivors wrote about strange animal behavior just before the quake. Dogs barking constantly, and horses refusing food. Even today, archaeologists find skeletons buried deep underground from that event. It changed Chinese building styles forever, shifting from caves to wooden homes. Yet the memory of that day remains quietly buried beneath the soil. 11. The 2010 Haiti earthquake. On January 12, 2010, life was normal in Port-au-Prince, Haiti's busy capital, until the earth suddenly shook at 4:53 p.m. The quake was 7 magnitude, strong enough to collapse buildings across the city instantly. Thousands were trapped in fallen homes, schools, and hospitals. The National Palace, a symbol of pride, turned into a pile of broken concrete. Over 160,000 people died, but many more were missing. People tried desperately to rescue loved ones, pulling away rubble with bare hands. Aid was slow to arrive, and soon disease spread through crowded shelters. Survivors faced days without clean water or medicine. Footage from CNN showed heartbreaking images, like a man quietly playing a violin on top of ruins, surrounded by despair. The quake echoed Haiti's forgotten 1842 disaster, but the 2010 quake left a deeper scar, reminding the world of how quickly life can change when the earth betrays the vulnerable. 10. The 1964 Alaska earthquake. On March 27, 1964, in Alaska, families were preparing for Easter weekend when suddenly, at 5:36 p.m., the ground violently shook for nearly 4 minutes. It was a massive 9.2 magnitude quake, the strongest ever recorded in North America. Roads cracked open, turning into twisted ribbons of asphalt. Buildings and entire neighborhoods slid into the sea. Then massive waves, tsunamis, hit coastal villages, washing away whole towns. In places like Chaniga, most villagers didn't survive. Huge ships ended up stranded deep in forest. Scientists found out later that the earthquake even slightly shifted Earth's axis, shortening the length of days by a tiny fraction. Photos from the U.S. Geological Survey showed boats high in trees and beaches, raised high above water. This quake reminded scientists of Alaska's forgotten 1899 earthquake. But the 1964 disaster stays vivid in people's memories as the day the land and sea fought together against humanity. 9. The 1931 China earthquake. On August 10, 1931, a powerful 8-magnitude quake shook China's Xinjiang region. The shaking was just the start. Mountains collapsed, blocking rivers and forming huge natural dams. At first, villagers downstream saw rivers drying up and didn't understand the danger. Weeks later, one of those dams broke suddenly, unleashing a massive wall of water that destroyed towns and farms. Over 10,000 people died instantly, their homes swept away in the night. Fields turned to mud, and survivors told stories of a strange dark rain that fell afterward. The magazine later described this as a tragic event hidden in remote mountains, much like the deadly floods from China's Yellow River in 1887. Even today, hikers in Xinjiang find hidden clues: rusted farming tools, children's shoes, silent reminders of a forgotten disaster. 8. The 1923 Tokyo earthquake. On September 1st, 1923, at lunchtime in Tokyo, people were cooking when suddenly the ground shook violently. The quake was a massive 7.9 magnitude event, destroying buildings instantly. But worse came next. Fires broke out everywhere, fueled by broken gas lines. Flames spread rapidly, forming tornadoes of fire that jumped streets, destroying entire neighborhoods. Thousands tried escaping to rivers, but bridges burned and collapsed. Over 140,000 people died in just a few hours. In Yokohama, the famous Grand Hotel collapsed, burying guests. Days later, hungry survivors had to eat animals from Tokyo Zoo. Photos from Japan's Kyoto News showed miles of burned ruins. People said the fire seemed alive, dancing through the city. The quake was like Tokyo's forgotten 1855 disaster, but the 1923 fire remains Japan's worst urban disaster. Today, Tokyo holds annual drills, quietly remembering the day fire and earth worked together against them. 7. The 1970 Peru earthquake. On May 31st, 1970, the people in Paris-Ancash region were relaxing at home when suddenly a powerful 7.9 magnitude earthquake hit. Within seconds, houses collapsed and mountains shook. But high on Mount Huascaran, something worse happened. A giant piece of glacier broke free and thundered down the mountain at terrifying speed. A massive avalanche of ice and rock buried the town of Yongay completely. People had no time to escape. Even buses and buildings disappeared beneath the ice. Over 70,000 lives were lost that day. Only the tops of palm trees and part of a church remained above ground, silent reminders of the disaster. This tragedy resembled an earlier avalanche in the same area in 1962. But the 1970 quake was much deadlier. Today, visitors to Yongay see the town's ruins, quietly preserved under layers of earth and ice, forever frozen in time. 6. The 1948 Ashgabat earthquake. On October 5th, 1948, at midnight, Ashgabat, the capital city of Turkmenistan, faced disaster. Without any warning, a strong 7.3 magnitude earthquake hit the city while everyone slept. In just a few moments, nearly every building collapsed into piles of dust and stone, burying thousands of families instantly. The Soviet government didn't tell the world the true scale of the tragedy. They claimed 10,000 deaths, but secret records later revealed the real number was closer to 110,000. The city was almost completely destroyed. Streets became graves, and marketplaces turned into silent ruins. Decades later, construction workers digging in Ashgabat discovered buried buildings filled with everyday items, books, toys, and dishes, still sitting as they were that night. The city eventually rebuilt, but residents still tell stories of lights flickering mysteriously over the old ruins. A quiet reminder of the night a whole city vanished. 4. The 1995 Kobe earthquake. On January 17, 1995, at exactly 5:46 a.m., Kobe, Japan, was shaken awake by a sudden earthquake, measuring 6.9 magnitude. The city, famous for modern buildings and highways, saw its strength disappear instantly. Roads cracked wide open, and elevated highways collapsed like they were made of paper, crushing cars beneath. Fire quickly broke out, burning through neighborhoods filled with wooden homes. Without water, firefighters could only watch helplessly. Over 6,000 people died, and thousands were left homeless. The busy port city was suddenly silent, with cranes leaning into the sea and shipping containers scattered like toys. A famous video shows a bridge twisting and falling dramatically, capturing the terror of the moment. The earthquake was compared to Tokyo's disaster in 1923, but Kobe's tragedy reminded Japan how quickly its cities could fall. Today, Kobe is rebuilt, but those who lived through it quietly remember the morning when everything changed in an instant. 3. The 1985 Mexico City earthquake. On September 19, 1985, at 7:17 in the morning, people in Mexico City were just starting their day. Suddenly, the city began shaking violently due to an 8-magnitude earthquake that had started far away on the Pacific coast. Within moments, the city's ground, built on soft lake soil, acted like jelly, causing buildings to sway wildly and then collapse. Hospitals, offices, and apartment buildings crumbled quickly, trapping thousands. One famous collapse was the Nuevo Leon apartment building, where rescuers spent days digging people out. At hospitals, nurses had to manually keep patients alive because equipment failed. Over 10,000 people died, though the true number is thought to be higher. Later, experts learned the shaking was worsened by the city's lakebed location. The disaster echoed an earlier quake in 1957, but the 1985 quake remains a powerful reminder of how hidden dangers beneath a city can quietly wait until the worst moment. 2. The 1811 New Madrid earthquake. On December 16, 1811, settlers in New Madrid, Missouri, experienced something terrifying. Just after midnight, the earth suddenly started shaking with incredible force. A series of huge earthquakes, 3 of them above magnitude 7, hit the region, ripping open the ground and sending dirt flying into the air. Witnesses saw something unbelievable. The Mississippi River actually flowed backward for several hours, creating whirlpools that sucked boats underwater. Entire forests sank into swamps, and massive cracks opened in fields. Church bells rang loudly even 1,000 miles away. These quakes created new lakes, like Tennessee's Reelfoot Lake, formed by sinking land. The Native American tribes had long told stories about a great creature beneath the earth, shaking the ground. Stories settlers suddenly believed. Even today, this region experiences regular small tremors, quietly reminding everyone of the night the Mississippi River did the impossible. 1. The 1700 Cascadia earthquake. On January 26, 1700, along the coast of the Pacific Northwest, something huge happened, but nobody wrote it down. A massive earthquake, estimated at magnitude 9, struck along a fault called Cascadia, stretching from California to Canada. The land dropped several feet instantly, and giant waves called tsunamis flooded coastal villages. Because the native people didn't keep written records, the disaster was almost forgotten. But thousands of miles away in Japan, historians found old writings about a mysterious giant wave that hit their coast that same day in 1700, with no local earthquake causing it. Scientists connected the stories, realizing the quake happened across the Pacific. In Oregon and Washington, people now find ancient forests of dead trees, still standing where salt water killed them. This silent disaster was hidden for hundreds of years until recently understood. A quiet warning of what nature can do, even when nobody is watching. And that's all for now. Stay curious. Until the next story on 4 Evergreen.